President Trump warning Republican senators they must keep their promise to repeal and replace Obamacare. After all, this is what they were sent to do, right? Lawmakers have been promising this for 7+ years. You know, I don't know. They suddenly wake up and they don't know what's hit them. They haven't figured this one out. They didn't have anything in place that they thought they could come to agreement on. Rather shoddy workmanship, if you ask me, for these politicians. Anyway, now that they really have the chance to repeal Obamacare, some senators are saying not so fast. 3 of them, in fact. My next guest says there's actually some Republican lawmakers who secretly like Obamacare. Here to tell us what he means, Republican representative from Florida, member of the Freedom Caucus, Ron DeSantis. Good to have you here, Congressman. What are you telling me? So there's ulterior motives at play?
Well, you'll remember last Congress, Trish, Barack Obama was president. We passed a bill in the House and in the Senate which repealed Obamacare, all the taxes, all the spending. President Obama vetoed it. And the leadership in both the House and the Senate said, see, we've proven we can do this with 50 votes. If you give us a Republican president, then we will take Obamacare and it will be gone. Right. So now we're in a position where we can do that. And some of the very same members who voted for that bill in 2016 that Obama vetoed now will not vote for it because they know that President Trump will sign it. And so the only inference I can draw from that is that they actually never really wanted to repeal Obamacare in the first place.
So what's the thinking behind that? I mean, they think that their constituents, you know, Representative, right? Once you give someone something, it's very hard to take it away. And you look at, I'll use the senator from Maine as an example. She doesn't like the idea of more people being on, not having, I should say, Medicaid. So she's squawking about all of this. There are other senators as well. It sounds like you got the same darn thing going on in the House. Is that it, that they're just afraid to take things away from voters?
That was not how we campaigned. I mean, pretty much all Republicans said Obamacare was cratering, you have premiums going up, you have deductibles skyrocketing. And yes, there are states that expanded Medicaid, but many of us pointed out, I think almost uniformly, that these are prime, able-bodied, working-age adults who are actually being preferred in Medicaid over the traditional Medicaid population, poor seniors, disabled, poor children. And so it actually hasn't had a good effect for that core group, and then overall it's just unsustainable. So Republicans have always said you needed to do something about that. Then we've always said that Obamacare was driving the rates up and we needed to repeal it. And so now here we are, and I've heard different members say, hey, we want to repeal Obamacare, but we don't want to repeal the regulations. We don't want to roll back the Medicaid expansion. We don't want to repeal all the taxes. Well, when you start saying that, then you basically don't want to repeal Obamacare at all.
I got to tell you, I'm very disappointed in them, a little disgusted in them, because as you point out, they campaigned on one thing, and it's sort of like a bait and switch. And I think it's because they're scared. I think that they are fearful of a backlash that they might get. But then why campaign on it in the first place?
Well, that's right. And I think part of it is when we're up here in Washington, you have the legacy media. They're 100% in the tank for saving Obamacare. Obviously, the Democrats want to save Obamacare. So I think sometimes what they get is a little bit distorted. The average middle-income family who's just had to pay more and more under Obamacare, they don't necessarily have lobbyists here in Washington. In fact, they elected Republicans to be their voice because we knew that they were suffering under the law. And I think some of these members may have been disingenuous the whole time, but I think there is a little bit to be said for them losing sight over some of the people that have been hurt by Obamacare. Then when you start talking about, well, we want to preserve a lot of these stiff tax increases in Obamacare in order to do more welfare spending for able-bodied adults, look, there's a name for that, and that's tax and spend liberalism.
See, this, I think, is scary, Representative. This is setting a bad precedent. If you don't want to actually repeal that 3.8% Obamacare tax, then how are you ever going to get to tax reform down the road?
Exactly, and that tax on investment income is an economically destructive tax because we should want more investment, not less. So if you want more of it, then don't tax it. If you want less of it, then do what Obamacare did.
So it runs
counter to pro-growth economics.
Maybe they can take some econ lessons there in Washington, D.C. one of these days.
That would be helpful.
The voters will eventually give them a very hard lesson in politics. They're running some risks for sure. Representative DeSantis, thank you so much.